the report for 2011 of the police. Honorable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I present to this Honourable House the annual report on audit of the accounts of the Ghana National Insurance Scheme.
Reports from committees. Oral questions without notice. Questions and notice.
Honourable members, there are 3 questions on our paper. All are for written reply. Questions numbers 1 and 2 are in the name of the Honourable Member Ms. Afiko Selman and are for the Minister of Education. Question number 3 is in the name of the Honourable Member Mrs. Catherine Hughes and is to the Minister of Education. These answers have, therefore, in accordance with our standing orders, been circulated. May I take the opportunity to welcome back our member, Mrs. Catherine Hughes.
Statements by ministers, including policy statements. Personal explanations. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Motion relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by a minister.
House, I rise to make my contribution on Budget 2013 under the theme Overcoming Challenges Together, Accelerating Gains for Guyana. Mr. Speaker, this budget is crafted for the rich and the not so rich. It is crafted for the PPP cronies. Certainly, sir, it is not crafted for the working class people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, in introducing Budget 2013, the Honorable Finance Minister, in his opening remarks at page 1, made reference to the one-seat majority in this new dispensation and alluded to parliamentary action of the past 14 months, which was occasioned by the one-seat majority. So, the Honorable Member cited cutting essential budgetary, denying an elected member the right to speak in the National Assembly, passing of motions or bills to defy reason, among others. Mr. Speaker, having assimilated that, I wish to point out the following. The one-seat majority is a telling reality of the new dispensation the people of Guyana wanted. Sir, prior to 2011, the PPPC had a 5-seat majority, and they did whatever they wanted to do, right or wrong. But the Guyanese nation disagreed with their approach, hence this new dispensation. I wanted to advise my dear comrades that you will have to live with that for a little while more, after which we will exchange sides and fully take the reins of government. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the temerity to speak about cutting essential budgetary allocations, sir. Why would the opposition agree to have the National Comedy Network, the National Communications Network, which is classified avoid staffers services dispensary? Those are questions that must be answered by the Honorable Minister of Finance. How do you answer for contract holders who are not on the job and who are receiving huge sums of money as their salaries from the office of the President? And those are only a few to mention. Thirdly, a very sensitive issue, which the Honorable Finance Minister referred to, the denying of the right of an elected member to speak in the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, we in the opposition do not deal with petty politics. We deal with issues.
That's right, that's right.
And you must understand the issue. We move the motion of no confidence in that elected member. We believe that under his watch, crime escalated, murders increased rapidly, and public security under his watch was dismal. And so we felt that if at minimum our country is depleted further of its essential human resources, it is time for us to save it. And if the PPP does not feel that we should save it, then they are playing petty politics. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn my attention to the Mr. Speaker, I am totally disappointed. I listened to the Honorable Minister of Education and expected her to adumbrate education policies intended for 2013. But no, this House was treated to the story of Dream Boy. Mr. Speaker, I cannot help but to say that our education system in Guyana sucks. Its focus is on the wrong ball. The government's thinking on education is that the more money you put into the system, it is the most improved one. We hear from the Finance Minister about the largest budget. We see an increase by over $2 billion in the education sector. But we are not getting value for money. And sir, I will venture to cite some examples to substantiate my statement. One, according to the budget, some $3 billion is budgeted to be spent on infrastructure and repairs, etc. But sir, a big chunk of this money is to construct new schools, among other things. I believe and I recommend that the focus should be on the following. A, repairing and maintaining more of the existing schools so that more of our children can benefit and be safe. Mr. Speaker, how could we have schools that have, for example, industrial art center and no electricity to make it functional where children will get real benefit? B, how could we have schools where adequate textbooks and furniture are absent? Mr. Speaker, I have just returned from Region 9, and let me point out that that there are 4 children sitting in one bench at the St. Ignatius Primary School. And this is across all the regions. I hope Ms. Karen Rodriguez is very proud of that achievement. 4 children in one bench. See, how do we have new schools when the existing one does not have furniture to accommodate all our children? Education, sir, is not about tinkering with people's minds or with politicking. We must get it right. And I urge the Honorable Minister of Education to get it right and focus in the direction where our nation's children will benefit. Teacher training. Mr. Speaker, I cannot help but to allude to teacher training. At our teacher training institutions, here again, the government's focus is dilated. And I have been making this point over and over again. But someone is either not listening or not hearing. Mr. Speaker, government's focus is on quantity, not quality. It must not be a matter of how many, but how good they may be. This government gloats by going to public fora, including these hollowed halls, and speak of large numbers graduating. But sir, if our teachers are poorly trained, then our children in turn will suffer. I would like to ask the Honorable Minister whether the professionals have done an assessment or analysis of the content of teacher training at regional centers as compared with that of the Cerro Porto College of Education. I would like to bring you to your attention the teacher trainees at the regional centers are robbed of time for lecture series, exposure, opportunities, and generally the content. These factors, sir, contribute to the poor quality of teacher training across regional centers. I call on the government to address the core of the problem. Education delivery. Mr. Speaker, I believe in giving credit where credit is due. And I believe that we have seen improvement at the National Center for Education and Research Development, NCER. And it is good when the minister can take on board recommendations made in this honorable house and implement them. I note with great appreciation the improvement of the learning channel, which I raised on the last occasion, and its programs, and the exam operations and the examination section of NCER. Towards this end, I would like to offer congratulations to Minister Priya Manichan for allocating a portion of professionalism to her dicta. Thanks for accepting APNU's recommendation. But I want to alert you that your literacy, in case you don't know, your literacy educators have not been paid through the NCER program from January until this month of April. And something should be done about that very quickly. Mr. Speaker, we can't wait on the budget to eat. You were waiting on the budget to eat. Mr. Speaker, more germane to the delivery of education would be what we do to improve our education system. And here, I would like to allude to the following. One, recognizing the fact that pass rate in English and math of a meager 31%, government made an intervention and injected $80 million and invested it in photocopied textbooks, geometry sets, etc. And what happened? The pass rate was reduced to 29%. That must have told us that the intervention was not the answer. But what is? Mr. Speaker, there is a shortage of competent lecturers at our training facilities. And we have to solve that problem. And we can solve that problem by improved training and significant increase in their emoluments. Lecturers cannot give of their best because they are not properly remunerated. They will not spend quality time to deliver. They have to concentrate on sub-jobs to make $1 to be able to cope in Guyana, where the cost of living is extremely high. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, injections cannot be given at the secondary level. It has to be at the primary level. And if you do not have, for example, a proper foundation, when building a house, the entire house will collapse. And so if we can't fix the bottom, then the top will collapse. Mr. Speaker, there are several methods of teaching reading, for example. One, are our schools implementing them? Are there any considered incentives for improved performance? What additional inputs are given to schools and teachers to address our literacy and numeracy? I urge the government to use some pilot schools in every region to start as a base with new methodology. Sir, these are the nitty-gritties that we have to look at if we want to improve literacy and numeracy. In our education system, sir, how about if we try a salary injection for our teachers and see whether it will improve our children's performance? I know you will want to argue about the union's multi-year agreement, but Mr. Speaker, it is worth a try. I call on the government, sir, to give the teachers the salary increase injection and improved working conditions, and I am positive that there will be improved performance. Preparation for industries and the world of work. Mr. Speaker, government has been touting about developmental projects, and to name just two, they spoke of Marriott Hotel and the expansion of the Javelin International Airport. Sir, I have to point out that it would appear that our education system is not geared to prepare anyone to work on those developmental projects. One, what then are the roles of world of work? 3, isn't it Guyanese have to go to China, India, Brazil, or some foreign country to learn masonry and carpentry, or how to fetch a bucket of bricks? We hear of the thousands being trained, according to Ministers Gopal and Wanejil, honorable members. But where are they? And why do we have to resort to importation of human resources to do those jobs and those very developmental projects? Mr. Speaker, is it that our education system is only concerned with academic, exam-oriented people? Is it that the government is losing the opportunity of preparing students to have rounded personalities? Mr. Speaker, indeed the government has lost that golden opportunity to develop our nation's children, to become good men and women of tomorrow, and who can develop Guyana. I urge you, Honorable Minister, to rethink your strategy. The writing is on the wall. Let us not create the scenario of exam-oriented students only. Let us build around making our children functional in today's society. Let us work towards making our children with rounded personalities. Schools in the regions. Mr. Speaker, if we take a look at the schools in the region, we will see how they are overwhelmed with problems. Dropouts, vandalism, crime, drug abuse, children wanting to be teachers. Only to mention a few. Mr. Speaker, these atrocities are growing daily. But is there a plan by the ministry to grapple with these problems? The budget is silent. I recall in my younger days as an educator, the PNC introduced guidance and counseling as a compulsory subject. But true to form, this government believes that they must undo everything that was implemented by the PNC government. But sir, there is so much to learn from guidance and counseling. I believe it will help to mold our nation's children. Mr. Speaker, for years, we have also been talking about dropouts at the school system. But we do not want to solve those kinds of problems. Sir, I asked the government a few questions. What has happened to the idea of welfare officers for social workers? And I mean adequate welfare officers and social workers. What has happened to security in all the schools? Is there any consideration for risk allowances for our teachers? Finally, on this topic, Mr. Speaker, let us look at the schools across the regions carefully, and we will see children from level 1 to C6 go to lessons. The majority of children writing CXC going to some lessons or the other. Whether they are the great schools like Queen's College, St. Stanislaus, and Bishop, they are no exception, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, notably less of the university's population is opting to take the loan. Hence, some of the so-called subvention is never disbursed after the government uses that sum in its propaganda to pad the amount of money to supposedly allocated to the university. The budget for years has been devoid of any policy initiative on tertiary education. And even the US 10 million, which will go to the university under the World Bank loan, is insufficient to address the woes of the university. And this sum only became available to the university as leftovers from a project which initially did not include the university in its profile. Under capital estimates, 50 million has been allocated for distance education by the university, although there is no project that has been developed to cater for distance education at the university. This may yet be unspent monies regimes to enact modern legislation for education sector. The education bill is still to be brought to the National Assembly and may well remain where it is right now, but a touted reform or a reform which will itself require reform. Mr. Speaker, I want to refer this Honorable House to a principle outlined in the Constitution of Guyana. Sir, Article 27(1) illustrates, and I quote, "Every citizen has the right to free education from nursery to university, as well as at non-formal places where opportunities are provided for education and training." My understanding is that the Constitution reform has proposed a change from university to secondary. Oh, Fort Burnham, I wish you could come back to save this nation. Mr. Speaker, firstly, I call on the government to use the principle in Article 27 as a guide. Secondly, the Honorable Finance Minister alluded to a growth rate of 4.8% in his budget presentation, which illustrates that the is doing well.
That's true.
And so, sir, I hope if that figure is reliable, then I'm sure that this government must not increase the fees for our young people and to be denied of the tertiary education at the University of Guyana. There has been a lot of talk in and around about raising the fees at the University of Guyana. I call on the government, Mr. Speaker, to relinquish the idea and thought of any hike at the University of Guyana. Our young people need a chance for their upliftment. Conclusion. Mr. Speaker, APNU certainly is not optimistic with the 2013 national budget. This government's self-centered and autocratic approach to the carving of Budget 2013 is unacceptable. It is not only what you want, but it is what we want together. I urge the government to desist from the fluff it has been grown accustomed to for the cameras that is a talk of working together and consultation. But may I give you a gentle reminder, honorable members, that 33 is greater than 32. Mr. Speaker, having identified the misdirected focus of government, I will hasten to reiterate the following recommendations. 1, you need to change your strategy of only building buildings and strive to adequately equip them for genuine use. 2, start meaningful injections for improvement at the primary level, not the secondary level. 3, increase teachers' salaries for improved output. 4, enhance teacher training with improved methodologies via lecturers who must begin to enjoy improved working conditions. 5,
your time is elapsed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honorable Member be given 10 minutes to conclude her presentation.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. 5, equip technical institutes and industrial arts centers with adequate equipment. 6, reintroduce the subvention for Critchlow Labor College in order to give a second chance to our Guyanese youth. 7, establish in every region a pilot project and experiment on new methodologies in the teaching of reading. And finally, 8, consider establishing Tech Voc institutions in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. We need to prepare our young people in our interior regions and not only those on the coastline. Mr. Speaker, I do not wish to go on and on, but for starters, I urge government, and in particular the Minister of Education, to not only spend money, but to work towards getting value for that money. Hence, I commend those recommendations for action in order to improve the education sector. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, Minister Norman Whittaker, to address us. Normally a very flamboyant individual.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Colleagues on both sides of the House. Mr. Speaker, I welcome the opportunity to participate in this debate on Budget 2013, presented to the National Assembly by the Honorable Dr. Ashwini Kumar Singh, our Minister of Finance. On Monday, March 25, 2013, overcoming challenges together, accelerating gains for Guyana. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2013 arose out of our commitments to the Guyanese people, with whose support we of the PPPC government have been able not only to overcome the challenges of the hostile political climate of the post-November 2011 period, but also
to have the budget cuts restored. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, these challenges only serve to intensify our resolve as a people and our efforts as a political party, as a government, to ensure that the wheels of progress continue to turn. And those of us who not only read the budget, but study the budget, will realize that the wheels of progress have been turning all along. Perhaps too fast for some of us. Mr. Speaker, we have been able to mitigate and successfully resist attempts to usurp the mandate given to the People's Progressive Party civic government by the electorate to govern. Guyanese have been feeling and benefiting from our gains under the PPP civic government. Even as they come to the realization that my friends on the opposition side do not even have a development plan for Guyana. I offer you $208.8 billion and ask you to prepare a plan and show it to the Guyanese. Their focus has been on making our country ungovernable, on getting even, and on targeting individuals within the government. My friends, your time could be better spent. Mr. Speaker, I exhort the opposition to not vote budget cuts again. There's obviously no need at all. Guyana's economy is doing well. Revenues continue to increase perennially, and consequently, more resources are available to provide more goods and services for our people, and that includes you. This improvement, Mr. Speaker, necessarily confirms that we have been making wise choices. How is it we are able to garner more revenue? How is it we are able to provide more goods and services? How is it that our people are able not only to enjoy, but be very vocal about it, enjoying a better standard of living? Our decisions in terms of allocation of resources have been very good ones. Continuous shortages of food, fuel, medicine. This was the holiday. This was the day of the PFC, the Borealism that they would want to re-invoke. No, we're dealing with Borealism today. We start Indeed, the World Bank has predicted, somebody mentioned it, that Guyana's economy will grow. Somebody mentioned 4.9. But the information I have, 5.6% in 2013. This prediction, thank you, Zachary. This prediction is premised on the fact that what we have is a sound economy with consistent growth. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2013. China must focus on preserving the macroeconomic stability we have enjoyed over the past year. My brothers and sisters from the opposite side of the House, I exhort you. Guyana's future continues to look good. Our creditworthiness has been restored. Hospital, health centers, roads, houses are being built. Our gross domestic product and our external reserves continue to rise. I feel good when I read that the present figure stands at $862.2 million US. I feel better when I convert this and I understand and appreciate that that is equivalent to 4 months' imports. Do not be left behind or left out. Join us. Join us, those on the opposite side. I want you to benefit from the major projects. that are being implemented and will continue to be implemented. I want you to benefit from the success story of Oneida Falls. I want to see you on the 4-lane highway driving the cars made possible because of the prudent economic policies of this government. I want to see you in the nice homes. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that our efforts to maximize use of the Parliament to advance our development agenda through motions and bills are being stifled by the opposition in some ways, but we are determined to improve the quality of life enjoyed by our people and to manage the economy so that economic growth will accelerate, and in the process, jobs will be created and workers' interests advance. What is important also, Mr. Speaker, is how far our economy is able to provide for the needs and well-being of our people. We have a society of which we are proud. We have a society where free education and health care and many other social programs are available to our people. We advance arguments that there's still a lot to be done. And whilst we advance arguments that there have been deficiencies in some areas, we must also recognize that as a government, we have been able to make available free education, free health care, and many other social programs to our people. We have a society where our GDP continues to rise annually, where interest rates and inflation rates have reduced appreciably, and credit is now affordable. We have a society where, unlike the budgets of the night, this is something I want to recall. In fact, I want to share with you because I do recall it. I do recall as a little boy, my parents glued to the radio with the budgets of the 60s and the 70s. And it was not with any measure of excitement, because those budgets were mere horror stories, with measures such as higher taxes. When last you read or heard of a Guyana budget with higher taxes?
Talk about the VAT.
Such as higher taxes, rising prices for basic food items. Of course, the perennial devaluation of the Guyana currency. And then, instead of feeding the population's stomach with food, we fed people's stomach with slogans. Tighten your belts. Till there was no ways to tighten. Tighten your belts. Prepare to eat less and work harder.
You looking well there.
Compared to those days, the PPPC budgets have perennially exuded the confidence of our people, providing opportunities and a recipe for improvement of our country. Mr. Speaker, the 2013 national budget is about continuity of our development plans. That's what it's about. We have recognized that development is a process. And as someone said, some other speaker said, no budget can turn a country around or allow us to satisfy all of the individual and composite demands in 1 year. And so we have been focusing on continuity and consistency of policies and programs that have been working for us. They have been working. The indicators show that. The social and economic indicators reveal that. The comments of external observers, the comments of international financial agencies affirms that. We have been getting positive results as a result of the measures we take. The 2013 budget, my friends, allows us to maintain our momentum and to continue our socio-economic and infrastructural development. It is intended to, and will, in my humble view, impact on the poor, impact on the young, the elderly, the vulnerable, and will advance our development agenda for Guyana. For it addresses not only socio-economic growth, but the plight of the vulnerable. It places more disposable income in the hands of our people through a range of relief measures, a range of fiscal measures. Mr. Speaker, there is something in the 2013 budget for all of us, now and for tomorrow also. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier on, Guyana's economy is predicted to grow, and I use a figure of 5.6%. I also have figures from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLA. And this report says precisely the same thing. This is a preliminary overview of Latin America and the Caribbean. And according to the report, Guyana will see the highest growth. The name of the report is Preliminary Overview of Latin America and the Caribbean 2012. It's written by Alicia Barcena, B-A-R-C-N-A, of ECLAC, ECLAC, Economic Commission for Latin America. According to the report, Guyana will see the highest growth in the Caribbean during 2013. While most other Caribbean countries will remain fiscally fragile. That's what the report says. And that paints a picture. That says something. Mr. Speaker, I want to deal with the hinterland region, Region 1, but before I do that, I want to deal a little bit with the municipalities, the local government organs, for which we at the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development have responsibility. Local government is integral to the development of our country. Okay? In fact, local government is part of the implementation of the budget measures that have been set out in 2013 budget. At the level of the local government ministry, we have received $282 million. And this amount of money is made available to 65 NDCs at $3 million each. That's $195 million. And also 6 municipalities, a total of $65 million. It is not my intention, Mr. Speaker, to stand here and to say that that allocation is adequate to address all of the needs of the various communities. I'm not about to say that. But it does allow the local government organs, and it does allow the people in the various communities across Guyana to have a say and to have an opportunity to be part of the development that takes place in the various communities across Guyana. The RDCs, for example, the RDCs for Region 1 to 10 have been allocated in excess of $20 billion. And this sum is intended to assist in delivering goods and services across Guyana under the various programs: education, healthcare, public works, and in some regions, agriculture. Mr. Speaker, we at the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development have determined that there have been some areas of weaknesses that we needed to address. And indeed, we have been working feverishly to address those in terms of monitoring of projects that are taking place in the various communities across Guyana, in terms of our solid waste, and also in terms of garbage collection and disposal across our country. At the level of local government ministry, our efforts to empower staff of the ministry and the RDCs and LDCs and municipalities have been bearing fruit, as evident from an examination and a review of our 2012 achievements. This shows that 90% of the capital works in the 10 administrative regions were completed. The RDCs of Region 1 to 10 were able to successfully implement more than 90% of its work program for 2012. And this is commendable. In terms of the NDCs, a tremendous amount of resources have been made available in the area of, if you give me a minute, in the area of, just a minute there.
In those days, such as political dialogue between the parties to resolve differences and constitutional and parliamentary reforms. In Parliament Review de Montresor, I found an astute, sometimes wily, but always formidable politician. He was the epitome of the gentleman parliamentarian who was always gracious, respectful, and extremely knowledgeable of the Constitution and standing orders of the National Assembly. To those who seek to uphold the Westminster-type traditions of parliamentarianism, came up against him that I see him lose his calm and collected demeanor. He characterized the way we ought to practice politics in this chamber, and that is with decorum and dignity. I am extremely happy that in 2012, this National Assembly was able to recognize and honor the Honorable Ripu de Montresor for his long and outstanding contribution to the democracy of Guyana. And it is always better, I think, to say thank you to someone in life than posthumously in death. And so I leave the chamber with the words of the poet Robinson of Tagore, and those are, death is not extinguishing the light, it is only putting out the lamp because the dawn has come. May I invite you all to stand as you observe 1 minute silence.